Okay, so get this right. We're diving into the world of street art today, but like, hold on to your spray cans because things are about to get kind of meta.
Meta. How so?
Well, we're tackling the mystery of Mr. Brainwash.
Ah, Mr. Brainwash. The name alone sparks debate, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, is he a true artist or some kind of elaborate art world hoax?
To understand that, we got to rewind a bit. Back to 2010. Remember at Banksy film Exit Through the Gift Shop?
Oh, yeah, the one that left everyone wondering what was real and what was, well, Banksy messing with us.
Exactly. And smack dab in the middle of it all is Thierry Guetta, this French guy living in LA running a used clothing store, nothing to do with art, really,
Until.
until he picks up a camera. And I don't mean like a fancy one. He's filming everything, family stuff, you name it, real home video vibes.
So how does this guy go from used clothes to the art scene?
That's the thing. It's through family, actually. See, his cousin is Invader,
Wait, the invader. The one behind those mosaic space invaders popping up everywhere.
the one and only. So through Invader, Thierry gets this like all access pass to the world of street art.
I bet. I'd be glued to the camera, too, with that kind of access.
Oh, Thierry was. He filmed everything. Years worth of footage. Artists, their techniques, the whole secretive scene. He practically built an archive of the movement. But then the story takes a hard left.
What do you mean?
Out of the blue, Thierry decides he wants to be a street artist.
Hold up. He goes from the guy behind the camera to grabbing a spray can himself. Just like
Yeah.
that.
That's what the film wants us to believe. And not just dabbling either. He rebrands himself as Mr. Brainwash, throws this massive debut exhibition, Life is Beautiful in LA.
Okay, hold the phone. This is a lot to process. So are we supposed to believe he was this secret art prodigy, or is this where the whole Banksy hoax thing comes in?
You got it. It's the million-dollar question. And to make it even more confusing, Banksy goes on his website and swears the film is totally real. Says Thierry, aka Mr. Brainwash, is the real deal.
But this is Banksy we're talking about. The king of mystery and making us question everything.
You're not wrong, and that's where this deep dive gets really interesting, because someone else comes forward claiming to have known Thierry long before the cameras and even before he ever met Banksy.
Okay, so we've got Banksy, the ultimate art enigma, saying Thierry's legit. But then we've got this other person claiming, nope, I knew him way before any of that, and he was already making art. It's like, who do you believe, right? So who's
Yeah.
this other person? What's their deal?
Well, get this, they're a documentary filmmaker. And not just any filmmaker, they actually worked with Thierry years before Exit Through the Gift Shop, like even before Banksy was in the picture.
Whoa. Okay, so this isn't just some random person on the street. They've got firsthand experience with Thierry. Did they say what kind of art he was making back then?
So this filmmaker did one of those Reddit AMA things, Ask Me Anything, and people were all over them about Thierry. And they were adamant that Thierry was, one, a real dude, just like in the film, and two, already into street art back then.
Wow. So are we supposed to believe that Banksy's film just completely fabricated that whole overnight transformation thing? It's kind of hard to ignore what this filmmaker's saying, though, right?
Yeah, it definitely throws a wrench in the whole narrative. But speaking of narratives, let's talk about Mr. Brainwash's art itself. His debut exhibition, Life is Beautiful. Back in 2008, that wasn't just some small art show, was it?
No, I read about that. It was huge, right? Like a big deal in the LA art scene.
Massive. I mean, we're talking these big, bold installations, mixing all kinds of media. Some people said it was like Warhol meets Basquiat, but with a whole lot of pop culture thrown in. And the craziest part?
As a
People loved it, or at least a lot of people did. Major magazines covered it, and pieces were selling for, get this, 5 figures.
5 figures. For a first-time artist? That's insane. Was it really that good?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Some critics were blown away, called it energetic, audacious. But others, well, they weren't so sure. They said it felt derivative, like he was borrowing from everyone but himself.
Ah, so even back then, it was kind of polarizing. You either got it or you didn't.
Exactly. But hey, that's the art world, right? Especially when you're dealing with street art and pop art, it's going to rub some people the wrong way.
True, true. But controversy or not, Mr. Brainwash was definitely getting noticed. Didn't he even do something with Madonna?
He did design the album art for her 2009 album Celebration.
No way. The Madonna. That's a pretty big deal, even if you're already making waves in the art world. I mean,
Yeah.
that's Madonna.
Yeah.
Did people think it was a good fit, though? Her and Mr. Brainwash.
Oh, it was definitely a hot topic. Some thought it was brilliant, this perfect storm of pop art and pop music. But then there were those who saw it as, well, more evidence that Mr. Brainwash was more about the hype than the art itself. Like, his connection to Banksy and now Madonna was the real art piece.
It's like his whole story was becoming part of the art itself.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't separate the guy from the work. And it wasn't just Madonna. Didn't he have other big projects after that?
Oh, yeah, he was just getting started. We're talking installations at the Toronto Film Festival. He's part of this huge art fair at the Saatchi Gallery in London, even those giant 9/11 murals in New York City.
Okay, so we're not talking about some underground artist anymore. This is mainstream success. You'd think the art world would have come around by then, right?
You'd think.
But it sounds like even with Madonna on board and these massive projects, the art world was still, like, holding back a little.
You could say that. He had the success, the attention, but that cloud of suspicion, it never really went away. And you can kind of see why when you compare his work to, say, Banksy's, there's this, I don't know, sense of deja vu.
Like, people thought he was ripping off Banksy. Too similar.
It definitely raised eyebrows, the stencils, the pop culture icons, even the colors he used. It all felt very, very familiar.
Well, if the whole Mr. Brainwash is a Banksy production theory is true, wouldn't it make sense for their styles to be similar, like almost on purpose, to make a point?
Right, like how much of this is originality and how much is commentary.
Yeah.
And you know the art world loves a good debate. It was like everyone turned into an art critic trying to spot the differences, or I guess the lack of differences.
So the more successful Mr. Brainwash became, the more people questioned him. Talk about a double-edged sword.
Totally. And I think that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. It's not just about Mr. Brainwash. It's about us, what we consider art, what makes something real or fake.
Is it the artist's intention, their skill, or is it just, like you said, what we decide it is? Because, like it or not, Mr. Brainwash made people feel something. Whether it was awe, confusion, or maybe even annoyance, people were reacting.
Exactly. He tapped into something. And whether he meant to or not, he sparked a conversation about art, authenticity, the role of hype. He threw this wrench into the whole system. And it kind of feels like we're all still trying to figure out where it landed.
So where does that leave us? What's the takeaway from all of this?
Honestly, I don't have a neat answer. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the real Mr. Brainwash is the questions he makes us ask.
Ooh, I like that. So, to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. Think about Mr. Brainwash and all the mystery surrounding him. Does that mystery make his art better? Worse? Or does it even matter? Because the answer to that might tell you more about your own relationship with art than it does about him. And that's something worth thinking about.